we had talked about marriage or whatever, and, you know, I was like, whatever. And he's like, I'm going to show you. And one day I remember we were just watching the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and we were into the show because I think it was the episode where somebody got shot. I don't know if it was Will Smith or the other guy got shot in the butt or something like that.
Oh, yeah,
but it was like,
that, yeah.
Yeah, it was like really sentimental, but we were, you know, that was the hit show at the time when we were into that. And out of nowhere, he was like, will you marry me? And I wasn't paying attention, so I didn't even notice that he had a ring in his hand. And I was like, yeah, whatever. Like, I wasn't even paying him any mind until he, like, tapped me on the shoulder and was like, I'm serious, will you marry me? And that's it. That's our proposal story while watching Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Now, this is a story all about how. I love it. Your life got flipped, turned upside down, okay?
Upside down, indeed.
Upside down. I love that. And so, guys, another little lesson here. It doesn't always have to be the horse-drawn carriage, and that's lovely if you can have it. You know, that's beautiful. But romance is what you guys build between you two, and it's your story. So I've heard some women that I've counseled over the years to be worried about that. Like, oh, our story isn't great. And I think that it's your story, so you make it great. And I think that's adorable. I think that is so adorable that he had the ring and you were like, boy, bye, whatever you're playing. I love that. Okay. So I just wanted to get into this next thing. I think that sometimes we idealize the whole wedding, completely forgetting about the reality of marriage. And watching any of the shows, Say Yes to the Dress or the myriad of shows that are on, my gosh, what incredible pressure. You know what I mean, Nettie, that is out there to have this incredible marriage that happens on a day. And then we forget about the rest of the actual marriage that you have to live in. How would you describe the first few years of marriage for you and Victor?
Well, I got pregnant the first year of marriage, and he didn't want me to work. I was pretty sick, anemic, and I had morning sickness like the whole 9 months. And then after she was born, it was just more practical for me to be a stay-at-home mom because, you know, the price of daycare is crazy. So for the first 9 months of her life, he didn't want me to work. He wanted me to be a stay-at-home mom. But after 9 months of that, I was like, are you crazy? I can't do this.
Right.
I am not the stay-at-home mom type. I have to do something. I need to bring in my own income. I don't like depending on anyone. If you know how I am, you know I'm like crazy running around always.
Always. She does not exaggerate. Always, always. So the first few years, you guys are trying to figure out the balance of you maybe trying to fit into his ideals, which is stay-at-home mom, and him getting to know who you really are, which is not stay-at-home mom.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so... Okay, no, go ahead.
I was very lucky with that, with being able to go back to work and have someone I trusted to watch her.
Yeah, I think that that's something that can give you such peace of mind because I've heard, I am not a mother, but I have heard that there is an incredible struggle when you have your first child and it's time to return to work emotionally. Even if you are like Nettie and you need stimulation outside of the home, and there's nothing wrong with being a stay-at-home mom. It's an amazing, fantastic job, but there's nothing wrong with wanting to be at work either. And that is what our whole women's lib thing is about. You get to make your choice. And so I think that it's really nice that you were able to figure that out with support from him. And that's, something I wish for everybody that might be in that situation. Now, you and Victor have been together for about 20 years. Actually, I think, isn't it your anniversary coming up soon?
Yes, it'll be in June, I believe. Yep.
Okay. 20 years. And when I talked last week about Pragma a little bit, what Pragma meant in the Greek idea of what love is. It's about long-standing love, and it's about standing in love and not falling in love, because there's all these great emotions we have. But when you're with somebody for 20 years, there have got to be some highs and lows, and you got to figure out a way to stand in love. Can you tell us about that in your relationship? Did you experience any of the highs or any of the lows? And so that we can better understand what that might look like for some of us that would choose to endeavor in that direction of a 20-year relationship, 20 plus years.
Yeah, I think that all relationships have the good times and the bad times. Nothing is perfect. Everything is work. And there was a time where we really had to work at it because I kind of lost myself. And sometimes it happens. You lose yourself, and all you're concentrating is on home, wife, kids, but not on me. And there was a time where we grew apart for a little bit, and we were separated for about 6 months. And those 6 months was one of the, lows, I guess you would say it, but we found our way back.
And what did you do to find your way back? And was it hard for you to be apart from him during those 6 months?
I don't think it was hard because even though we were living separately, he's a great dad, and he would pick up the kids every day. So every day he would drop them off to me. So we saw each other every day. But in those 6 months, we did marriage counseling, and we just needed to find our happy medium, like what I needed to do. And in that time, I went back to school. I got more involved with things I like real estate. I did real estate for a while. I got involved in politics and that aspect of life. And we just were able to find, I guess you would say, balance and what worked for us.
Right. And I have to ask this too, because this is something that a lot of couples are faced with. And interestingly enough, it ties into the lesson, even though you aren't aware of that. But the third stage of being in a long-term relationship is a disillusionment. That what you just talked about, that growing apart and thinking like, how do we go forward? Is this still the same person that I was so madly in love with? And I just wonder, in that time, were you ever tempted to date anybody else, or was it even about that for you?
It was never about finding anybody else or ever, not even for him. It was more about me trying to find me again. Because I felt like I was lost. I needed purpose for me. My kids were good. They were happy. My husband was happy, but I wasn't. So I needed to find me and purpose for me.
That is so profound to me, Nettie. And listeners, I think that we can all relate to being in a relationship with someone that we love dearly, but we feel like we are losing ourselves. And I think that it is so honest and vulnerable of you, Nettie, to share that, because it's okay to know that sometimes you need to pause the trajectory of your life and take some time out for yourself. As women, I don't think that we really give ourselves permission to do this. So can you tell me what you did discover about yourself positively in that 6-month period?
I wanted to finish school. I needed to be like family and your kids. That is awesome. That's great. But you have to remember that you're an individual and you have your own interests. And I wasn't doing any of that. Like, I've always, all my life, been in clubs, been in sports, been volunteering, and I wasn't doing any of that at that time because I felt like I was raised where when you get married, you are in charge of the household. You have to take care of your husband, your kids. You're last, and I've never been last in my life. Yeah, I've always helped others, but I always did it because that's what I needed to do. So I guess I felt kind of like the traditions of, if you want to say traditional Puerto Ricans, how they serve the man and serve your kids, and then you go to sleep for 2 hours and get up in the morning and do it all over again. That wasn't it for me.
Okay, now that is a perfect segue for me, because I know about your Puerto Rican heritage. We mentioned that your husband is also Puerto Rican. I have my own West Indian heritage, even though I am, from here in America, but I grew up with a West Indian culture. And in West Indian culture, women are very subservient to the men. Even the siblings in the household are treated as a better commodity. I hate to say it, like a person almost than women, and you're supposed to serve. You're taught that even in the familial structure. So how did you find, my favorite word, your balance in a marriage with that? Because culturally you're being told a different thing than the Nettie that I know and that I see. And it doesn't mean that you disrespect, because you're so incredibly respectful of your husband and you handle him. So, I mean, I shouldn't say that, guys, but ladies, come on, sometimes we have to handle them. You handle him so well. And I feel like you honor his masculinity and you honor his bravado without emasculating him. It's a really interesting balance to watch. So how did you manage that, especially because you're so fiercely independent? How did he deal with that? Do you have any stories about that?
He kind of, I want to say, taught me, like, you don't always have to serve me. You don't have to serve me at all. I have 2 hands and 2 feet. I can get up and serve myself. Like,
yes, I love it.
Yeah, that's how he's always been. And one time I remember we were in Puerto Rico. We went as a family to visit my grandma. We were there, and she had just finished cooking dinner, and she was like, okay, serve your man or whatever. Serve Victor, give Victor food. And he's like, what does she got to serve me for? She needs to, the kids haven't eaten. She needs, if anybody, she should serve the kids first and serve herself, and then I'll get whatever I want. And she just looked at him, because that's not what she's used to, She's always used to, like, you serve your man, you put it on the table, and once everybody else has their food, you go and you get yours.
Listen.
So I guess he was my teacher in that sense.
That is such a beautiful testament to walking with your husband, or your husband walking with you. I love that. Having grown up with a father who would, like, put the cup down on the table, and that was the indication that you needed to refill it. There were never any words. So I'm like, oh my gosh, Victor is a saint, because he could have very easily just went along with what your grandmother was saying, which would have been easier. It would have been the path of least resistance. But instead, he stood up for you. He protected you. And I believe that that's the way that it really should be. And I just feel like you guys have been working so well together. And I wanted to just kind of circle back to the children. You mentioned that you always loved his children from the get-go. But the other side, when I was thinking about your story, is that there must be a mother to those children somewhere, because they were very young. And I've heard all kinds of stories in my counseling and readings with my clients about struggles and dealing with that situation. Can you tell us a tiny bit about your experience there and offer any advice to other women out there who may need a word of encouragement about how to deal with the ex and deal with the new children, or that kind of blended family situation?
Yeah, the advice that I would give is be ready for a roller coaster. But as the new wife or the new spouse or the stepmom, you have to remember that the children have a mom. So you don't want to take over that role. You want to be there for them and parents, but you have to remember they have a mom, and that is first in their life, is their mom. And it's hard when the exes are, like, struggling with their own relationships and it's not good. You just have to remember that you are married to your husband. You're not married to his ex-spouse. So you try to mediate as best as you can, and remember the children are first, because in the end, the ones that truly get hurt or not hurt, and it depends on you, are those kids. So my goal was always just to be supportive for the kids, let the kids know I love them. I love them as they were mine. I didn't treat them any differently. And if anyone had their back, it would always be me, without trying to get too much into drama.
And I know that about Nettie. She really doesn't like drama. She doesn't like gossip. This girl is a cut from a different cloth. She just is not into all that stuff. So I really know that that's the way that you executed that situation and went about dealing with it and having a healthy relationship with the kids, even to this day, and being able to interact and having respect from the ex even. So that's an amazing feat. And I just want to ask before we go, if you have any words of wisdom to offer anybody, a quote or just some personal words of your own for someone that's in a long-standing relationship or someone that's in a blended family. Do you have anything about that?
It's so funny. I thought about it a lot from the last time we spoke, and the only thing that kept coming back to me, which is, I'm sure there's an original person that quoted this, but it's from a Justin Bieber song, and he says, the grass ain't always greener on the other side, but it's green where you water it. And I think marriage is like that. Like, we shouldn't be thinking about what's on the other side or what's next. We should be trying to cultivate and water what we have and take care of what we have. And that's how I guess it works.
Wow, you just led into the rest of the lesson after